Hello, my name is Gypsy, and welcome to another episode of an Analog Horror Analysis, a series in which I go through, cover, and analyze other people's different VHS tapes. Today we are going back to one of the first episodes of Season 1 of this series, to the Walten Files. Now, as most of you probably know if you are clicking on this video, there's a new episode of the Walten Files. Well, not really a full-length video, but a short animation called Hotline. Hotline is the coverage of a company employee training tape revolving around the new Bunny Smiles Incorporated creation, that being the Bunny Smiles Hotline. This creation was made after Bunny Smiles were hiring caretakers for their canine facility. Now, the reason why this video is called Everything You Need to Know Before the New Season of the Walten Files is because of this. About a year ago, I had made a video that was over an hour long, breaking down the first full season of the Walten Files, and I hate this video. Most of the video, I'm not even talking and I'm just letting the tapes play, and every now and then I'll give maybe a 5-minute monologue over the basis plot of each video. I got lazy, and the only thing that I was focusing on is my excitement about having a video that was over an hour long. I just thought that was cool. And I decided to redo the video in a different fashion, giving you a short breakdown of the full story of the Walten Files, including the new tapes, so you can be fully caught up with where we are in the series. With all that being said, thank you for clicking on this video, and let's begin. In a nutshell, the Walten Files revolves around the story of two people, that being Jack Walten and Felix Kranken. Jack Walten being a smart, collected man with 3 children, while Felix has no children, 1 wife, and we will later learn that unfortunately he is an alcoholic. Jack and Felix met in college through engineering, having the same passion of wanting to pursue children's entertainment, similar to something like Showbiz Pizza or Chuck E. Cheese. After hitting it off and becoming best friends, over the years they would build up a company called Bunny Smiles Incorporated, with the goal of making a restaurant called Bond's Burgers. Throughout this journey, Jack and Felix would get married, Jack being married to a woman named Rosemary, and Felix being married to a woman named Linda Thompson. Jack would have 3 kids with his wife, that being Sophie Walten and Ed and Molly Walten. Remember these names because they will become very important later on. Felix and Jack were almost like brothers. They built up a company together. In doing so, that meant their wives were close friends too, that being Linda and Rosemary, as I said before. There is a scene within the series where we see multiple pages of a diary of Linda writing about her life. Writings talking about Linda and Felix spending the holidays with Jack and his family, and even being there for the birth of Ed and Molly. And throughout this relationship, Bunny Smiles would grow, to the point where they would have a full date set up for the opening of Bond's Burgers. But throughout Felix and Linda's marriage, Felix's drinking problem would worsen, until eventually Linda would write one final letter directly to Felix, talking about how she loves him, but she can't deal with his drinking any longer. By the time he is reading this letter, she would have already been gone. While she was writing it, he was in a meeting with Jack discussing the new business restaurant idea. This clearly would weigh heavy on the mind of Felix, and only worsen his drinking problem, but he did still have one friend, that being Jack. Jack still trusted him and wanted to pursue this business idea with him. A week before Bond's Burgers would open, Jack had one final thing to do. His 2 daughters had a school dance coming up, and he really wanted them to go. So in the middle of the night, he calls up Felix and asks him if he can pick up his daughters from after the school dance. He would later find out that this is the worst mistake that he would ever make.
Hello? Felix. Jack, what is it? Listen, I was wondering if you could give me and Rose a small favor tonight. I don't know, Jack. Today's been it's about Ed and Molly. They have a school event tonight, a school party, and they have no one to pick them up. I need to stay at the workshop to finish the paperwork, and Rose is taking Sophie to the dentist. We were wondering if you could pick them up for the event and take them home later.
Tonight?
Yeah, if it's possible, of course.
Sure, I can do that.
Really?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, thanks a lot, man. You're lifesaver, Felix.
It's nothing.
Alright, so I'll pick them up at 5 and get them home at 9. Rose should be home by then. If she's not, you call me. Got it?
Got it.
Ed and Molly would eventually get picked up, but instead of Felix looking for them like he was supposed to, they would find Felix drinking at the bar. Their childlike innocence shine through and they just say, "The drinking is bad, Felix. You shouldn't be doing such a thing." To which he would reply that I'm just dizzy, that's all. They eventually get in the car, and throughout the drive, Felix becomes more and more drowsy, as he is intoxicated. Ed and Molly keep pressing him, asking him when are we getting home, and Felix, aren't you driving a little fast, and where are we? He eventually gets a little snappy with the children before apologizing and just explaining that he just wants to go home and lay in bed. Molly, being the youngest one, would comfort Felix, saying things like, "It's okay, we understand, and everything will be okay." It turns out nothing would end up okay, because due to being intoxicated and drowsy, Felix would drift into the left lane, causing him to narrowly miss a car, swerve away, and run into a tree. Felix would survive the crash, but Ed and Molly were not so lucky. Ed and Molly were dead, and it was no mystery to whose fault it was. Felix would scream and cry in terror, and after somewhat processing what just happened, he comes to the conclusion that he is far too scared to confront Jack and Rose about what just happened, so he would eventually bury Ed and Molly in the middle of the woods. But Ed and Molly would eventually escape their grave, and they would possess a gray rabbit doll that they had named Rocket that they had gotten that Christmas. This is the first possession in the series, keep this in mind, and what would later transpire that night would be nothing short of a horror movie.
You have 25 new messages. Felix, pick up the phone. Now, I need you to pick up the phone. It's been 3 hours since I told you to get Ed and Molly home. What happened to my children? If anything happened, Felix, you must tell me. You haven't told me in 3 hours. I need to know what's going on. I'm trying to call you all night. What the hell is wrong with you? I've been trying to contact you all night. I've been calling everyone for you. Just what the hell is wrong with you? 3 hours, you didn't call. I asked you to do one simple favor for me. I need to know, where are they? Where did you...
With 2 missing children and a man who won't answer his phone, Jack eventually takes it upon himself to drive to Felix's home to confront him personally. As Jack pounds on the door, his raging screaming turns into pleading and weeping, just for one small clue to know where his children are. He doesn't just pound on the front door, he pounds on the windows and the back door. All the while, you can hear coming from inside Felix's house, the voicemails that Jack left Felix throughout the night are still playing on his home phone. And right before the scene cuts away, you hear Jack say, "Felix, if you did anything to those kids, I will kill you," before it cuts to a shot of Felix laying in a grave with the gray rabbit plush, now possessed by Ed and Molly. Felix even goes so far as to stand at the edge of a cliff and take his own life, but in the end, he is not able to do it.
3 days after the accident, I haven't been able to sleep since last week. I finally told him what happened. It was in my office. This is the longest hour of my life. The most painful conversation I've ever had. Pain in their eyes, the anger. They both hate me now. Rosemary asked about the doll. I told her that they left it at school. That was a lie. I don't know what to do with the doll. Wherever I go, there it is, and I can't get myself to get rid of it.
So with this in mind, I got some good news and I got some bad news. The good news is we know what's happening right now in the series. The bad news is we have no idea what transpired between the opening of Bond's Burgers and that night. Well, that's not entirely true. The one thing that we do know is that somewhere in between the death of Ed and Molly and the opening of Bond's Burgers, Jack Walten goes missing. We don't know how, we don't know why, we don't know who did it, but we do know this. This is where we begin the series when it comes to the VHS tapes. If you watch the VHS tapes by upload date, you don't start at the beginning of the story. You start in the middle, where Bond's Burgers opens, and Jack Walten is already missing. And the only person that is around to open up the restaurant is Felix. And for some reason, every time that Felix is on the screen, it makes a point for the people narrating the video to say that Felix is a good man. And every time that happens, Jack will interfere with the video, and he makes it apparent that he is doing it in an act of rage.
So let's give it up for Felix Kranken, a man with not only a giant brain, but also a giant heart.
Clearly, whatever happened, Jack is pissed about it. But even in this scenario, you can't jump to conclusions. Although yes, you could sit around and say that Felix killed Jack in an act of fear. Maybe he was fearing that Jack would report him to the police and he would lose all of his business and everything like that. But you could just as easily say that although Jack might have died from a separate cause, he's still mad at Felix for what he did to his children. Now, did Bond's Burgers thrive and live on their days as a successful restaurant? No. Absolutely not. In fact, it was only open from June 28th of 1974 to July 20th of that same year. And apparently it closed due to budget reasons.
You gotta be kidding me.
To cut it short on why they closed, 3 people died at the restaurant. That being Susan Woodings, Charles, and I don't remember what his last name was, and Rosemary, Jack Walton's wife. Susan dies by Bond after doing a checkup on the animatronic. She gets stuffed into Banny. We don't know how Charles dies, but we do know that he gets stuffed into Boozer the Ringmaster. And Rosemary dies after Bond lures her into the back room, saying, "I know where he is, Rosie," while she is actively looking for her husband within the restaurant. She is stuffed into Shaw, the sheep animatronic. And I will say, although at this point it's kind of low-hanging fruit to point it out, Susan probably has the coolest death in the series.
Get in the goddamn cock shed!
Wait, I'm sorry. Can you repeat that? I can't fucking understand you. What the fuck are you fucking saying to me right now?
But that might just be my opinion. Now, after the obvious closing of Bond's Burgers, they would open up a storage facility called K9. And to make sure that nothing got damaged, they would have a facility caretaker to look over the K9 facility at night. Which,
What was that thing?
that didn't really go according to plan. Now, the deaths that I just showed you were the death of 2 people, that being Brian Stiles and Ashley Parks. Now, the difference between the two is that although Brian Stiles was sent alone, and I believe that was the case because he was the first facility caretaker for K9, Ashley Parks was sent with 2 other men, that being Kevin Woodings and Hillary Barkley. Now, if you've been keeping track of the names that I've been telling you, you would know that Kevin Woodings sounds a little familiar. Woodings, that being the last name of Susan as well. Although to this day we haven't seen any relation between the two, there's always time. And Susan is very well mentioned in that video, being one of the tapes that Billy says while he's singing his birthday song.
Jack, Susan, Charles, Rosemary, Sophie.
While editing and listening to the audio that you just saw, I just realized something. You can hear the high-pitched beep every time he says one of the names, but when he says Sophie, you hear a deep horn. I always thought that was just some creepy sound effect that Martin Walls decided to put in the series at the end of Billy saying the list of names. But Sophie is the only one alive out of that list. Jack, Susan, Charles, and Rosemary are all dead. Sophie is not. So maybe the deep horn wasn't just a sound effect. It was an alarm, sounding the fact that they're missing one off of the list. And to make it clear, Ashley is later stuffed into Billy, as you saw from the clip I showed you before. Now, when it comes to the storyline, where do we really go from here? Because everybody who was murdered has an identification for who they are and who they were later stuffed into. That is all except for Bond. Now, from first glance, you might just be like, oh, that must be Jack. And that's what we thought too, for like 5 years. In the latest full-length episode of the Walten Files, we all expected to see Jack hopping out of Bond. But we didn't see that. Instead, all of a sudden, we see this guy. We don't know who he is, where he came from, what he's doing. He looks like freaking... Never mind. Regardless, it brings back the mystery of what the hell happened to Jack, and where is he? Because he is possessing the VHS tapes. He does talk to us directly. So although he is most likely dead, he is still around. If you still want to, you can go watch my last video on the Walten Files, because although I don't talk like a crazy amount, not nearly as much as I should have, you can still go over all the tapes. I go much more in depth. With all of that out of the way, let's go into what this video was originally going to be about. Hotline. I'm serious. If I wanted to sit here and do a full Walten Files lore video, this video would be like 5 hours long. And when the series concludes, I might do that. But that's today's not that day. But I will say is one thing that I forgot to point out is that almost everything that I told you when it came to the beginning of the story, we found out through Sophie. Apparently, she's an adult now, and she figured out all of this through a freaking video game. The only reason she didn't know it before was because she was taking pills that made her forget her past life. Why she's taking those pills, nobody knows. But, you know, we'll figure it out eventually, I'm sure. Anyway, okay, back actually to Hotline, I promise this time. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of an Analog Horror Analysis, a series in which I go through, cover, and analyze. As I said before, this video is about a new Bunny Smiles mechanic called the Bunny Smiles Hotline. That being, if you are a caretaker for the K9 facility, you have access to a hotline in case of an emergency. Does it work? No.
Listen, I don't know exactly how to put this, but, I don't feel safe here. No, man, you don't get it. I feel Watched? I don't know how to put it.
Not really an emergency though, is it?
Obviously, it doesn't work, and unless your leg is like bent backwards, they're really not going to care. But he was right, he was being watched. We see a face watching him from the darkness as it slowly turns around the corner, to which the night guard is kind of unfazed. Well, not unfazed, but if I was in his shoes and I saw some shit like that, I'd be like shitting on my hands and throwing it at him. Eventually, he gives up on the hotline and tries to venture out of there himself. One of the first things that he sees is Buzu standing in the hallway. Whether Buzu is slowly walking towards the night guard's way, and the night guard luckily just happened to catch him in his footsteps, or he was standing there the whole time, we don't really know. But we do know that he actually made a good decision as to run away. Finally, someone with some brains within this series. He then goes far enough into the facility to find some sort of door that looks like it's the entrance to a safe. He pulls out a camcorder to record his experience, but it would be nothing like he expected. He sees what almost looks to be the ghost of Charles. Although he can't see him with his naked eye, he can see him through the screen of the camera. And that might be why he was unfazed by seeing the ghost in the hallway. Though we could see him through the screen, he couldn't see the ghost with its naked eye. And as he said before, he just felt like he was being watched, but couldn't confirm it. We then see Bond limping down the hallway making Walten Files noises. To everyone's surprise, he actually survives. He runs out of the facility and is not seen again, though he drops his camcorder within the facility. We see it laying on its side, though I will turn it right side up so you can see it correctly. This is definitely Charles. With the bob cut and the mustache, we know what our boys looks like, and the fact that we saw him earlier in the tape. And that's basically the entire tape. I do plan on doing a coverage of the Return of the Pumpkin Rabbit because I did buy the physical copy of the VHS tape, and I'm very excited to be able to watch it. Though Martin did eventually say that I'm not allowed to post anything about it online. Well, I'm not allowed to post like video of it, so. But I can tell you what it looks like, and I am extremely excited for the other two parts of this tape to finally come out because we've literally been waiting 3 years. And when they do, I will do a full video on both seasons. And that was basically all I needed to say. So there it is, what you need to know before the next episodes of the Walten Files. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.